Hey everybody, welcome to Christopher D.O. Art as part of the My Physical World YouTube channel. Today I'm going to take you on a walk as I paint the sky of this painting. Now the colors that you see on the panel now are from yesterday when I blocked it in with acrylics, and now I'm starting the oil process. I'm using some techniques on this painting that I'm not really used to all that much. A couple of them I've used quite a bit on not quite a bit, but I've used on some other paintings. But a lot of the techniques, I guess, on this I haven't used because the rocks of the canyon are quite unique. So there's a lot of extra blending, I believe, that's going to take place in this painting. So right now I'm painting in the base colors of the sky, and that is a mixture of ivory black and titanium white mixed to the tonal value. And that's usually what I don't do is I don't really normally start with tonal values first. I usually try to mix the colors. I know a lot of you artists are going to be saying, oh, you don't do tones first? Well, there's a couple techniques that I've been learning, and one of the main ones is mix by color first and then get the tone. But I thought I'd try do the tone on this one first. So I used the ivory black and the titanium white to match the tonal values, or of the sky at least. I do have a black and white version of the reference photo that I'm going over or using. But like I said, this is Antelope Canyon outside of Lecce, Arizona. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous spot. So once I got the tonal value of the sky, or the base tone, kind of a mid-tone of it, I then added cobalt blue to give it that kind of a darkish gray look to it. And I am using at the moment a angled brush. I believe it's a size 2. And I have a smaller brush that I actually have. I started recording this probably 5 minutes after I started actually painting. So I do have another brush that I'm gonna grab here pretty soon to get some of these smaller, closer spots. But that's a small flat size 2 that I don't know if I have it right now or not. Yeah, I think I do. Yeah. So that's a small flat number 2. But here I'm feathering in some edges and adding some of the lighter blue for the Magellic cloud because the scene is a night sky. It's not too dark, but you can see the Magellan cloud of the Milky Way. That's what that light blue is going across there. And so I took my mix that I have the base and I added a little bit more titanium white. And then I put that in there, and now I'm blending it out, softening all of the edges, and just using a soft fan brush for that. In some places I get pretty aggressive. Normally when you blend, you don't want to be aggressive. You just want to lightly blend your colors together, but some cases wanted to spread out a little bit more of the lighter blue, and so I got a little bit more aggressive to move that paint around. The board or panel that I'm doing working on is just a MDF panel, 1/8 inch thick, maybe actually it might be 3/16 thick, or you can call it gesso board if you want to. That's pretty much what it is. But a local art store had these boards on clearance, and apparently they're not going to carry them anymore. So I went in and bought them all. Of course, they only had 11/14s left. I normally paint on, I like 16 by 20 is my favorite size. But this is a 14 by 11. And so they had them on sale for $7 a piece, so I bought them all. And so I'm just taking that lighter blue and scrumbling it in places here, and then I'll get either a fan brush or another soft brush and work those in to lighten up that background, to make it appear like it's a Magellan cloud. And if you don't know what a Magellan cloud is, that's dust in space, dust and stars. When you look up into the sky and look at the Milky Way, you see that, why they call it the Milky Way, because it looks like milk, duh. But the white and stuff that you're seeing is kind of a mixture of cosmic clouds, dust, and then a lot of stars. That's what that is. So that's the effect that I'm trying to put into the sky at the moment. And here, I switched from the fan brush, and I got a Princeton deer foot brush. I have a mixture of brushes that I like to use. I buy a lot of Princeton brushes. Okay, but I do have some even higher quality brushes that I get from Michael James Smith that he sells on his website. But I usually, for the Michael James Smith, I like to use his True and Texture brush and his rigger brushes. I'll be using one of his rigger brushes later on in the video as I work on more prominent stars that show up. But I like the Deerfoot because it is soft. It makes a good blending brush for some cases. But it also gives me the ability to use it as a stippler, where I can dry brush a little bit and it will put little points of paint. So I'm doing that here and there, and then where I want cloud, then I'll just blend those speckles into the base. So yeah, I know you can't see it on the video at all, really. You can't see the little speckles of paint. You can really only make out the cloud portion. But if you saw it in person, you could make out some little faint stars. But the main purpose of this portion is to get that magelic cloud in there. So while I'm doing that, now the blocking colors, a couple of the colors are almost spot on in the acrylic blocking. But then there's also a couple colors that are not right at all. But that's what I like about the block-in, is like the main purpose of the block-in is to map out your midtones, and then also to obviously cover the white of the canvas or substrate that you're working on. So my main task was really to get the colors down, not absolutely correct, but get the paint on the canvas, cover that white, but keep the shapes of the different rock formations that are found inside this canyon. So you can see the different bands of different colors. As you move away from the point of view, the rock faces change colors. They're pretty much all the same color in real life when you go down there. I mean, they got some natural burnt sienna look and maybe a little purplish look on some of the rocks, but most of them are pretty bright orange, pinkish. And the colors that I didn't really get right in the block-in is that big arc on the outside edge of the painting. It kind of looks like a dark burnt sienna. Well, actually, that's part of the colors was burnt sienna and uh, burnt umber, and a little bit of crimson in there. But that's where I pretty much made my mistake. But when I go back and add in do the oils, I'll do all my color correction at that point. So when I get to that point, it will be more pinkish, but yet have some purple in there, especially in the shadows. So what I'm doing now is I've added more cobalt blue to my mix and a little bit more ivory black to darken up that sky in certain areas. And I'm using the deer foot. Usually I don't use the deer foot to apply paint, but in this case I wanted to blend as I was putting it in there at the same time. So I had that darker blue, and then I'm dabbing in where to show some depth of the sky. And that's what I'm adding in now, are the darker tones. Most of the time when I'm painting, kind of my process that I've learned, matter of fact from Michael James Smith, was you block in with your midtones, and then you come back and you add the darks. So I kind of did this part backwards, but I'm just not done yet. I mean, obviously I'm going to be adding some even lighter colors to it a little bit. But normally you would put well, it's not a law. There's no law in painting, by the way. You can do whatever you want. But so I'm adding in the darks of the atmosphere there to kind of give it a patchy, dark look to it. And again, I said that's from my original base color. I added more cobalt blue and some ivory black. And you see my head turned to the left every so often because I have my reference file, my reference photo over to the left on a computer screen. There I switched to the smaller flat brush to work in some smaller areas. Sorry, I had to take a drink. I believe at this point I went back and added a little bit more cobalt blue and ivory black because I did, to get some even darker spots that I saw in the reference photo. So what I'm doing now is I made a video about this a while back on can you erase your paint. You might want to check that video out. I don't know if you want to or not, but what I got is a cotton swab and a little bit of Gamsol on there, and as I was stippling, I went over the edge into the rocks, and I don't want that to mix in with the actual rocks when I start to paint those. So I'm just kind of tidying up the edges using that cotton swab. So you notice that the block-in layer is splotchy because it's kind of a high surface. It's not canvas. It's relatively smooth, and acrylics like to thin out when you're painting that surface with acrylics. If I was doing an entire painting out of acrylics on this surface, I would have layers and layers just to get it to cover. Obviously, it depends on the brand of acrylics that you're using. But when I'm doing my block-ins I don't use any expensive professional grade acrylics. They're just Galleria, Winsor & Newton Galleria brand. Now, a lot of times when I do mixed media, I'll have my background will be acrylic, where I try to make the background blurry or something like that. If I don't airbrush it, I think I have 2 paintings that I've actually airbrushed my background, but a lot of times I'll use just acrylic and a brush, and mixing that to create a blurry background. Now when I do that for acrylic that's going to be seen, because this acrylic right here won't be seen after I add in the oil paint, but if I want my acrylic to show and not have any major texture to it, then I usually switch over to my golden brand acrylics. So here again, I'm using the Deerfoot and I have pure titanium white, knowing that I'm coming in contact with a wet surface, and it's going to mix in with the blue that's there. So it's really kind of just, I'm lightening the blue in place. I didn't go over and add titanium white to my light blue mixture. I just took the titanium white directly out of the tube, and using the deer foot brush to apply that in a kind of the stippling, blending type of way. And this is to highlight a certain portion of that Magellan cloud, kind of give some depth to it. One other thing that you'll notice, I haven't done too many painting videos that I actually voice over like I'm doing now. But I'm not philosophical in my painting. I see a lot of artists that have YouTube channels, and they do their art, and they talk about their moods and all the different fluff about nature or whatever. I'm not that kind of an artist. I see something that I like and take that reference photo into my Affinity Pro or something like that. Do my color adjusting, adding elements to a photo that I think need to be there or something like that. And pretty much make a reference photo that I go off of, and I start painting. So I really like to be in a pretty good mood when I'm painting, because I do landscapes mainly. And if I'm in a bad mood, I probably just won't paint that day because it just won't come out right. I think you guys can relate to that, right? But there's artists out there, the angrier they are, the more they paint. I'm just not like that. But I don't have any philosophical inputs to my paintings. I just want to paint the beauty of the earth the way it is. And when I'm not painting landscapes, I'm usually painting animals. Probably paint birds and cats the most. So I do think that adding a little bit of that lighter color kind of brought a third dimension. Now this technique I don't use really all that much. I've probably used it over the past 2.5 years. I probably used it maybe 4 times. But that's just a old toothbrush, and I'm thinning out the light blue with some Gamsol, 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 and I'm just putting some paint onto the toothbrush, and I'm running my thumb over it to spray it onto the surface, trying to get most of it inside the sky area, but obviously I'm gonna overspray or over splatter onto the rest, but you'll see me clean that up here pretty soon. Especially a couple of those smaller areas down in the lower left. You can't help but to get some onto the rocks. You can't see it in this. It doesn't show up that well in the video, but at the end of the video I do have a still image of the finished sky. So here I'm using some Gamsol and lightly rubbing and taking off any of the splatter from the toothbrush. Technically I could have left it on, but I like to have I don't have any paint ridges when I paint. I try to keep my paints smooth unless something needs a little bit more texture. So the way I paint, especially this painting, I don't want any bumps, dried paint flecks underneath my smooth surfaces, so that's why I'm cleaning it off. Yeah, that's just a paper towel and some Gamsol. And it's not affecting the acrylic or anything. It's not that much on there. So I have different oils that I use. In this particular painting, the titanium white and the ivory black that I'm using is Winsor Newton. The cobalt blue that I'm using is Gamblin. And then when I get to the rocks, that will be pretty much a mixture of Gamblin paints for some of the colors and Palette Pro for some of the other colors. I had a lot of burnt umber and a lot of burnt sienna in the Palette Pro brand paints, which are available from Michael James Smith's shop. So I didn't buy any Gamblin brand of those colors since I already had those colors. And now I'm using it's not a deer foot, it's more of a round version of a deer foot. It's still a very soft bristle that I'm using to some of the splatters that got on there. The shape of would have looked like a comet, which would have been pretty kind of cool, but I was just kind of working those back into a cloud, basically, is what I was doing there. Now I've switched over to a 10-aught rigger brush, and this is a brush made by Michael James Smith that you can buy as well at his shop. When I first started being serious about my painting, I went ahead and bought a whole set of his brushes, and they came with all different sizes, but I found that I use more of his rigger brushes and his tree and texture brushes, and some of the other brushes I use to fill in the gaps. I'll use my Princeton brushes. So here I'm using the 10-aught rigger brush to put in some star points, some larger stars that appear, which, like I said, you can't see them too well in this video, but they show up really nice in person. As I'm voicing over for this video, I usually don't voice over. I usually talk while I'm doing it, but I didn't want to set up the mic and everything, and I just wanted to paint and not talk. But you'll always see this in videos, that sometimes what you see in the video and what you see in real life are quite different, because the blue is darker in person. The magenta cloud in the video looks more lightish than it does in person. In person you can see more of the base color in the background, but video, digital cameras really don't pick up those subtle differences all that much. But yeah, in my opinion, it looks way better in person. We'll see how much filming I do when I get to the rocks. I'll probably not film this thing clear out, but there's different bands of rock with different strata. It's sedimentary, it's sandstone, so there's a lot of subtle layers, not layer, I don't want to say layers because you might think paint layers, but rock layers. So you see all the different stripes that are in the rocks, and then there's that really dark rock right there in the front, and then there's just a slight glow of the sandstone around its left edge, and I'll paint that when I get to it. That'll probably be one of the last things I paint. But right now I'm just adding stars in the sky. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this process, kind of listening and chatting a little bit, listen to some nice music in the background, and I hope you guys subscribe to My Physical World. And if you like what I do and want to support me in what I do, besides going to ChristopherDio.com and buying one of my originals, you can support me by buymeacoffee.com/myphysicalworld. So I will see you guys on the next video, and coming up is the still shot of the sky. Anyway, thanks for joining, and I will see you guys on the next video. See you later.